in this session, we're going to talk about neurodiversity. We have at Kahoot, we have been working on thinking about inclusive learning. How do we make our products, our tools more inclusive for neurodivergent learners and therefore for all learners? And we're so excited to be part of a cohort together with the LEGO Foundation and a number of other partners working together on this. And one of the pieces that we're working on is actually a collection of content. So in addition to talking about neurodiversity and what that means in the classroom today, we're also super excited to share with you a sneak preview of a collection of content that we are all working on together that is resources for the classroom about neurodiversity. So things like, what does neurodiversity mean? What is it like to be neurodivergent? What is that experience? And these are going to be Cahoots, pre-made Cahoots available on Kahoot Academy that you'll be able to use in your classroom to learn yourself, to help other teachers learn, to help neurodivergent students feel more seen and understood, and to help their neurotypical peers understand more about what their experiences are. So we're going to talk about neurodiversity in general, and then at the end, I'm going to give you a little sneak preview. So I am so excited to bring on our panelists here. We have Andrea from the LEGO Foundation, Jamila from Invest in Play, Christine from Social Cipher, and Akshat from Mom's Belief. And we're going to hear from each of them. But first, I'm going to ask Andrea to tell us a little bit about how the LEGO Foundation is supporting this work in inclusion and neurodiversity.
Thank you, Louisa. And thank you very much for having us and for giving us a space to tell you all about the Play for All Accelerator. And I do think that as a colleague mentioned, like what Charles just did about how children can just explore and play and learn, that's exactly what we're doing. But what we are presenting here today, it's part of a project that we are funding from the LEGO Foundation. It's called the Play for All Accelerator. And what we're doing is that we're supporting ideas, startup games, so that they can adapt their games and their projects to be more playful and to be more inclusive. And what we wanted in the LEGO Foundation is we believe that play is important and everybody should be able to play and have that inclusivity within their games. So what we're doing is we're supporting these organizations that you're going to hear from in a couple of minutes. And we're funding them so that they can adapt their games to be more friendly towards children with autism, children with ADHD, but also that they're not so apart from each other. And I think Louisa just said it, right? Like how can play be more inclusive, and how can play bring together autistic children and regular children, neurotypical children in the classroom. And we're going to hear a little bit about what they're doing. And I know we have some very exciting things happening. So thank you very much.
Great. Thank you for that, Andrea. Okay, so let's hear from each of our panelists before we go into discussion. So let's start with Jamila. Will you tell us a little bit, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what Invest in Play does?
Yes, my name is Jamila Reed, and I'm a part of a team of psychologists, and we're actually supporting from the level of helping parents and helping teachers to understand their children more, and actually to help them directly in terms of how they play with their children and how they support their children's learning. We know that neurodivergent children sometimes have difficulty being in environments that are not so hard for typically developing kids or neurotypical kids. And so we're wanting to help parents and teachers really understand these children so that the children can be part of those environments in a successful way.
Great, really important work. Okay, how about Christine? Tell us about yourself and about Social Cipher and what you do.
Hey everyone, my name is Christine Denton. I'm the manager of education for Social Cipher. Social Cipher is a game-based social emotional learning platform for neurodivergent youth from the age of about 10 to about 15. And our main character is Ava, and she is autistic, and she takes the youth with her on a fantastic space pirate adventure. where she develops and learns a number of different social emotional skills, as well as really learning a lot of skills about self-awareness as well. So that's, she gets to learn more about herself and hopefully the world around her, and how to work in those situations successfully.
Awesome. Thank you. Cannot go wrong with Space Pirate Adventures. So we're excited to hear more about Social Cipher later on. And last but not least, Akshat, tell us a little bit about yourself and Mom's Belief.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for this platform. And firstly, before I begin, a big shout out to Steve for such a great hosting, for being such a super host for the Cahoots, and for Charles for such an insightful learnings. So yeah, my name is Akshat, and I head the designing and the innovations part for Mom's Belief. And we are at Mom's Belief, we are a team of psychologists, occupational therapists, creators, developers, and all of them. It's a mixed bag for all of us, and we are the India's largest holistic care provider for neurodiverse children. Our innovative, research-driven, play-based approach makes our family support program unique in its own manner. So that is where we bring the family together. The whole agenda, or the, what you can say, the vision of the program is to bring the family together with the child itself and have a play-based experience. Our vision is to empower the families of neurodiverse children and make them as the co-therapists, advocates, and play facilitators for the children. So that is something that we are striving to achieve, and focusing on strengthening the family's capacity to provide a nurturing environment and to foster the playful mindsets. Yes, that's something that we are striving with our family support program.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So as you can see, our panelists and our collaborators here really come from a variety of different backgrounds. And that's what's so wonderful about this cohort, is that it brings together psychologists, content creators, game designers, educators, all these different perspectives to create playful experiences that support neurodiverse youth in different ways, in all the different ways they need it. Okay, so let's dive into some discussion. First of all, you know, we've already, all of us have used the word neurodiverse, neurodivergent, neurotypical. Andrea, can you tell us what exactly does neurodiverse mean?
I was going to say that Jamila, would you like us to help us with that question?
Oh, okay, sure, yeah.
She's like way more expert than I am.
Sure.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So basically, neurodiverse means, neuro means brain, and diverse means different. And so neurodiverse people are people whose brains work in a different way than what we would call neurotypical. So a lot of the population is neurotypical. They are the majority of the population, and a percentage of the population, somewhere around maybe 10 to 12% of the population, are neurodivergent. This encompasses a category of diagnostic terms that you might have heard. So autistic people, we say, are neurodiverse. Children with or people with ADHD, people with dyslexia, people with Tourette's. So there are a number of different categories that we would call neurodivergent. And I just want to emphasize, this means different, but not bad, not wrong. If you think of right-handers and left-handers, a bunch of us are right-handed and some of us are left-handed. And it's just a different way. We need different ways to sort of approach things. And I think that's the same with neurodivergent. I think we'll be talking today a little bit more about what that looks like. But neurodivergent people often communicate in a different way, and they understand communication in a different way than people who are neurotypical. They may experience and express feelings in a different way than neurotypical people. Often sensory experiences are different for them. So they may feel overwhelmed by things that don't bother neurotypical people. And they also have kind of an amazing set of strengths that are different than neurotypical people. So they may be better at some things than those of us who might be neurotypical are. So I think maybe that's a good place to start. Anybody who wants to add to that, because I know we have some more questions about it as we go through.
Yeah, great. That's a great summary. Thank you. So Andrea, to bring it back to you, can you tell us why is play a good fit for a neurodiverse classroom or learning with neurodiverse students?
I think play is important everywhere, right? Like if we close our eyes and just like think for a second, what we remember of our childhood is playing. And what the Lego Foundation firmly believes is that every child has a right to play, and every child can play with whatever they had at home, in school, walking down the street. So play is important for neurodiverse learners because it can be a way that they can be included in the classroom. They can have socialization with their peers. So what we're trying to do is put the word out there and advocate that play can be a way that children can be included in the classroom, but that also neurotypical children, neurodiverse children can play together and just bond and learn from each other.
Great, great. And I know that because play and learning through play is so open-ended, it's something that it's so flexible that no matter how you think or how you understand the world or how you communicate, there are always ways to play that fit your mind and the way you think.
Yeah, and it's a little bit about like how you explore that creativity and that imagination, right? Like I have an autistic brother and he plays with, I mean, he can play with, of course, Lego bricks, but he can also play with like a piece of paper, and he can also play with like sand, and he can also play with rocks, right? So it's like how we explore those things that are around us so that we can just give the children that time to be playful and fun and learn.
Great. So Akshat, I know that in your work, you do a lot of using play to support neurodiverse learners and their families. Well, what ways have you seen play supporting neurodiverse learners to understand themselves and to access learning and development in cool ways?
Yeah, so like Andrea mentioned, play is everywhere, right? We cannot just take it out from anything. So with the neurodiverse learners, one major aspect comes in is it encourages the expressive language skills and the social skills for a child, right? The how they express themselves, like Andrea just mentioned, like a neurodiverse learner can also just end up playing with a piece of paper, which would be super meaningful for them, right? It would be more engaging and more interactive rather than playing a Cluedo or Uno or any other games that they would have, right? So that is what it helps sets the baseline in terms of the expression that helps him, and the creativity and the problem solving aspects that comes within it, as to solve a certain problem by trial and error methods and just going around it, right? Because that particular play is super iterative, and that is where it supports the learning opportunities that the play comes with. Yeah.
Great, thanks. Anybody else want to add to that?
I just wanted to say the other factor about play that's so important, especially for neurodiversity students, is the bonding that happens between the students. And this is just key for so many reasons, for all the social skills that are involved in all of that, but also that bonding and connection opens it up for students to become more vulnerable, more able to fail in front of each other and try new things. And all of those, there's just so many skills that are gained by playing games with those around and having those moments together and building that community within the classroom. And it opens the door for so many other skills to be built upon. So I just feel like it's such a not always appreciated factor for what it does and the ground level it lays for everything else to be built upon.
That's so important. And it also reminds me of some of the videos that we've seen in the past sessions of students and classes playing Kahoot and feeling, a part of something together that they're building and strengthening that bond. So it really connects to the work that we are doing at Kahoot together with Lego Foundation and the other partners, and bringing students together around these topics. So I'm glad you brought that up. And to stay with you for a minute, Christine, I know that you have a ton of experience in schools and classrooms, and we have lots of educators and teachers watching out there. What do you want teachers to know about neurodiverse learners? maybe some teachers who aren't so familiar with this concept or this idea are still learning themselves? What do you want them to know?
I think this is important for all students, but definitely for neurodiverse students, is that the teacher has to really come from the perspective that they're on a journey of discovery with that student and with every single student, because every single student is going to have different ways that work for them, that are going to get them from point A to point B and help them grow in any skill that they're learning. And so I think if you come from the perspective that they're on a journey, not that I'm giving you this information and you're just going to intake, but that we're on a journey together and we're figuring out what is the best way to teach you, what is the best way that you learn, that you take in. And I think that's really important. And you're going to fail and they're going to fail, and that's okay. And the point is that you showing that, and you showing that you're trying to learn and get to know them, and that one technique you might try might work and another one might not. And talking about that is going to show how, that vulnerability is not a negative. Because as we all know with students and kids, they learn from what they see, not from what they hear. So when they see you being vulnerable and risking and trying and attempting those connections and the best way to help and support them, that gives them the strength and ability to open up as well, and to share with you and give you feedback. Taking feedback from your students is an interesting procedure, and it really is, because they can be brutally honest, but it's wonderful because they feel that they have ownership in the classroom, and they feel as if that they're heard, which they are, and it also just sets up a different level of respect in that classroom, going both ways, which I think is incredibly important. So I would say trying to come from that perspective keeps you more open for whatever comes your way.
I love that perspective. And it also reminds me of why we all are collaborating on this project to bring a collection of Cahoots to the classroom. And what you're saying, I think, is exactly one of the reasons we're doing this, which is that through teachers playing these Cahoots to raise awareness in their classroom, we hope that it will make neurodivergent students feel seen and heard, and know that the teachers are thinking of them and really feel that they're an important part of the classroom community and want everybody to understand their experience more. So that's why we're creating this content that all the panelists are working on. Does anyone else want to share anything about what you want teachers or parents to know?
I was scrolling a little bit through the comments in the live session, and there's some comments around how we handle, the noise sensitivities around neurodiverse learners, or how do we adapt and include. And what we've been trying to learn in this accelerator program and through the foundation is that almost any game or any play activity can be adapted, right? And a lot of the teachers, of course, know what triggers or what are the things that can be adapted. But for example, you can lower the volume, right? Or you can, Kahoot is trying to make the game a little bit more inclusive and less competitive. And the colleagues from Moms to Believe are trying to make parents understand what is happening and what's going through their diagnosis. So it's about how we have that imagination and creativity to know that it can be adapted. Like, you don't need any fancy toys, games, or whatever to make your student feel more included. I don't know if anyone wants to jump in.
Great. So that really is in line with what Christine also said about just try things, right? Don't be afraid to try things and fail. You won't always get it right the first time, but you will gradually learn over time what works best for your students. So talking about, some of these concerns, what we want teachers to know, another thing that's important to bring up is, what are some common misconceptions about neurodiverse learners? Jamila, do you want to start this one for us?
Sure, I will. And I think here, traditionally, we have thought about neurodiverse learners as having deficits. And some of the things, if you're thinking about a child with autism or a child with ADHD, and many of you will have these, all of you will have these children in your classroom. And the idea, we may think, well, they don't have the capacity to make friends, they don't need friends, or they can't pay attention, or they can't communicate, they can't understand emotions. There are a lot of can'ts, or a lot of won'ts, or a lot of don'ts that we think about. And I think it's really important to know that those are mostly misconceptions. And what we now know, and what we're really trying to sort of think about with this idea of understanding neurodiversity, is that it's not that they can't and won't, it's that they do it differently. Autistic people can make friends. They do make friends. They want friends. But the way that they perceive friendship, or the way they experience closeness or friendship, may be different. And so it makes it harder for a neurodiverse and a neurotypical child to make a connection, or for you to make a connection with a neurodiverse child, because your language, and I don't mean just verbal language, but your language of understanding, your social language, may be different. And so I think part of getting to bridge those, and for you as teachers to bridge those gaps, is really trying to figure out what makes this child tick. Play is a great way and a great place to do that, because we can watch what these children are interested in, we can watch what they love, we can watch what they're passionate about, and understand, this child actually wants to be near me, but they can't look me in the eye. This child, when they're excited, they flap their hands, and helping their peers to also understand that too. So, I know that we don't have a lot of time. I could talk about this all day, but I think that's maybe one of the most important things, is just that what you think you know about autism is probably not exactly true.
That's great. Yeah. Does anybody else want to chime in with some other misconceptions or things you want people to understand better?
Yeah, like Jamila rightly said, we cannot have the right or the wrong way of learning, because all of that's actually one of the misconception in terms of when teachers or educators, when we go ahead in classrooms and in small cohorts, in terms of, okay, this is how I'll teach this particular topic, or this is how I'll introduce this particular stuff. So that is where we need to modify, we need to adapt to the learning styles as well. And what are, because again, when we talk about playful learning, right, we have the whole spectrum of facilitations available to us in terms of how we can facilitate that play, and what is the best suited playful experience that can be provided to the children.
Yeah, great. That's so important. So bringing it back to the classroom, what are some simple practices to support inclusion in the classroom that teachers can do today? It might be adapting some curriculum or technologies that they're using, or it might be, introducing some other practices that they haven't thought of yet. Christine, what are some of the top things that teachers can start with to feel like they're making a difference?
I think the biggest thing is allowing a lot of student choice in your classroom. And there's a lot of easy ways now with all the digital tools and platforms that we have that are not going to be more work for the teachers. Because having been a teacher for years in the classroom, I'm not trying to put more on the teachers that are already doing so much. But I think that one of the biggest things is giving them that student choice of how they present and show what they have learned. Because this, again, gives them their own ownership, and the way that they might show what they've learned is completely different than the way you might think to ask for it. And so if you're only asking for one way of showing it, then they might have learned, and you're never going to know. You're never going to know what they fully learned. And so, I've had students in my classroom that, would not present and did not, struggled with writing, and gave them an audio platform or a video platform, and they did fantastic. At first I could see this much of their head in the video, and then slowly and slowly and slowly, as the years went on, the year went on, they got more confidence. And I saw, the whole face was there in that video, but they did that on their own as they gained that confidence and were able to choose a different way to answer questions and show their learning or mastery of a skill. So I really think in drawing and like a comic strip story idea versus a regular, just writing a story idea, there's so many great digital formats and ways to do that, students can really show what they've learned and what their strengths are. And that only gives you more information as the teacher of how to better introduce and teach them the next time around. So again, it's a full circle that will continue to help you as a teacher if you allow them that ownership and choice, I feel.
I really love that. Yeah. So often school ends up being kind of one size fits all. And just like Jamila said, also for some learners, it's not that they have a deficit or they can't do things, they just do it differently. So offering them options and empowering them to say, how do you want to demonstrate your learning? I think that's so meaningful.
I just wanted to add, Louisa, that is one of the things that we always say in the foundation, right? Like children are the experts in playing. So if we really want to give them this time and space and the power that play can bring to them, we should just ask them, right? So I think that's an amazing point that Christine just made.
Great. So before I share a little sneak preview of the content that we are working on, that we're going to be launching soon, I'd love to hear from each of you. What are you excited about this collaboration of us working together to create a neurodiversity collection of Cahoots that will live on the Kahoot platform and that will be played and sharing information with so many teachers and students. So maybe we can start with Jamila. What are you excited about for this neurodiversity content collection?
I'm excited because I think this is such an opportunity. I think we need to be talking about these things openly with our students. We need to invite neurodiverse students to share what they know about themselves, and we need to have neurotypical learners be able to share how they learn and have that conversation go back and forth. And I think that, kids are a lot smarter and actually a lot more forgiving and a lot more understanding and a lot more open-minded, I think, than adults are. But I think we are often scared to talk about it. We don't want to talk about a child being autistic in our classroom or a child having ADHD because we think of it as a deficit. And I think if we can start these conversations early with kids and make it part of, kids know some kids run fast, some kids run slow, some kids are good athletes, some kids are good artists. And I think this can be one more thing that we just talk about really openly and without judgment, so that then they can work on those relationships between themselves in a positive way.
That's great. You've connected so many of the dots of the conversation so far. Akshay, what are you excited about for this content collaboration?
So, Jamila already covered all the pointers and connected all the dots, like you said. But the most exciting part is the platform and the appearance of the content that we are we have access to, and how we actually spread the awareness, how we actually make them understand as to what are the types of learnings, and like I mentioned before, what are the different types of learning styles, how different individuals learn, and what are the amalgamations of different learning styles within a person and within the neurodiverse learners. So the more we make the awareness spread about the learning styles, the playful learning, the difference between play in class and a playful class. So that's something that we would strive to make the differentiation in. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Great. Yeah. So a lot of information kind of for teachers and how they can approach students with different needs and different styles. Great. Yeah. I think our content is going to address that too. Christine, what are you excited about for this content creation project?
Well, I think two things. One, I'm going to jump on the Jamila bandwagon here and say that definitely self-awareness factors are huge. I think we are raising, being a mother and a teacher for years, we are raising generations now that are much more self-aware and are speaking up. And I think, yes, it's sometimes the adults that are having a harder time with any of it or all of it. And so I think the more we can continue to make all of our students self-aware of all of the differences we have, and I think it opens up more acceptance. That is a fantastic factor, and that's a key factor we do at Social Cipher too. So I love that. And so that's the other factor, is that the second factor for me is really combining different digital platforms and tools together and then working together. Because I think sometimes as a teacher in the classroom, you can get, okay, this is the tool I'm going to be using now, right? And then you're using that one tool, but you don't realize how powerful it might be if you're combining that tool with another one and using them together. And so the bridging between, like for us, for Social Cipher and for Cahoots, I think is going to just up it so much on both parts, and just bring so much more to the games for us. So I think that that's going to be amazing for the students that are going to be able to be a part of that. So that merging of different formats and different digital platforms, I think is just a great idea. And I think it's going to benefit the students very much so.
Great. Yeah, thanks for sharing. And lastly, Andrea, you and the Lego Foundation have kind of brought us all together. So what are you excited about for this collection of content?
I mean, we're just excited to bring inclusive learning through play to everyone, right? Like we've been working for quite a while to bring learning through play to every child around the world, and we have projects all around the world, but this specific team and project is part of our inclusion strategy now. And we really want to test and see how play and games and activities can be adaptive and can be inclusive. So what we're most excited about is having every child have the opportunity to play and feel like their needs are heard and and what they need is available. And I just wanted to shout out that you can download, I think someone in Kahoot is going to put a link up of our resources of learning through play, so you can access all of our research and everything that we have done around learning through play.
Yes, yes, you have provided many really valuable resources and links to research, and we will be sharing that in our follow-up materials from the meetup. So definitely everyone stay tuned for that if you're interested in more. So we've been talking about this content collection, and it is still in the works, so it should be released in the next couple of months. But just to give you a sense of it, I'm going to show you an example of one of the Cahoots. This one comes from Invest in Play from Jamila. So just for example, what kind of content will be in this collection? This is a Kahoot about ADHD. What is ADHD? And so just like all the panelists were saying, this is something that you can play in the classroom to kind of break that taboo and open it up. You know, some students have ADHD. Maybe they want to share about themselves and maybe they don't, but everybody can learn about what it is, what it means. It's much more common than a lot of people realize. So whether you have ADHD or you know somebody who does, or you don't know anything about it, this is a great way to understand what it is, what it's like, what are all the different ways that it can look, because it's not the same for every person. So here we have some great questions about ADHD being part of neurodiversity, general ideas about what neurodiversity is, things that we've been talking about on this panel, how ADHD brains are different from other brains, and why in what ways having ADHD can be difficult, and also the idea that ADHD can also be a strength. There are many successful people that have ADHD, and all the different ways that it can affect people, positive and negative. So we're not going to have a chance today to play this Kahoot, but maybe next time. And we are really excited to create content about neurodiversity and about a lot of different topics. And there will be content kind of aimed at students, so teachers can host in their classrooms, play the Cahoots and learn about this for students, as well as more teacher-facing content for teachers themselves to learn more about teaching practices and supporting their neurodiverse students. So I think we're going to wrap up there, but stay tuned for more. These are going to be resources that you can use every day in your classroom. And if any of the information and ideas that we've shared are of interest, feel free to check out the different organizations, partner organizations, and the resources that we will share from Andrea.